The Copperhead course at Innisbrook is host to 9 of the 150 hardest holes on the PGA Tour calendar and consistently ranks in the top 10 for most difficult courses on the PGA Tour calendar, despite having what may appear to be a standard offering at first glance. But designer Larry Packard uses the shockingly hilly terrain for South Florida to mold subtle difficulty in places that lack the typical boldness one might associate with challenge. Take the second and third, for example. The PGA Tour's 139th and 64th toughest holes, respectively. The yardage from the appropriate tees doesn't scare you, but they force you to play extremely conservative because of the water on the right and trees on the left. If played how you should, you're going to have a medium to long iron to a well-protected green. But if you try to take on the corner and miss left at all, you're likely in double bogey tree jail or taking a drop with 200 plus yards to the center of the green. Then there's the elevation changes. The 9th and 18th are medium length on the scorecard but play much longer. The approach shot is going to be anywhere from 20 to 50 feet uphill, depending on how far back you are, and you're going to have a strong upwards tilt at address. What adds to the difficulty here isn't just the distance and the elevation, it's the math. Even if you execute your perfect swing, you still need excellent algebra or trigonometry. And for most amateurs like myself, that is just one too many variables to get right consistently. And of course, the famous stretch of 16 and 18, the snake pit. Hole 16 is the 17th hardest hole on tour and plays like a longer par 4 on the scorecard. However, you can really cut down that yardage by cutting off the corner here, but the shape of the water hazard discourages too aggressive a play. That's because if your draw doesn't come back enough, or your fade starts too aggressively, you may be forced to reload from the tee box. And 17 is a long par 3 and plays uphill slightly, but uses the distance as its primary defense to the relatively receptive green. One wonders if the scores piling up here are more of a factor of regret from 16 and anticipation of 18. That's enough rambling. Let's see how the round went. Number 1, a long-ish par 5. It's actually one of the easier pars to get, but like every par 5, bubbling throat, like every par 5 on this course, it's not really gettable in 2, and that was part of Larry Packard's design philosophy. He even said once in an interview that he didn't believe in the modern design for par 5s, which are basically long par 4s. When you hit a par 5, he wants you to have to execute 2 shots and a wedge shot of some kind to earn that birdie. Now, I forgot to get the video of the drive, which ended up in this bunker here with the 5-wood off the tee. Part of that is neglect. Part of that is it is kind of embarrassing to have a camera right by the clubhouse with everyone watching because you look like a dork and that you're someone who's important who should be videoing their rounds when you're not. So that's why there's no shot of that. But we pick up from the fairway, from the fairway bunker, I should say. Second shot of the bunker. Good 7-iron, but I actually got a bit unfortunate when I hit that tree just in front of me to the left and knocked me back and prevented me from having any sort of look at it. And I contemplated trying to hit a hero shot, but I opted for the punch just to get something in the fairway and topped it. But regardless, it ended up perfectly fine. Still made its way to the fairway. At this point, we had about, I want to say 100 and just hit a nice wedge to carry that front bunker. It was a back pin, and really the goal this entire round, especially at Copperhead, is just get bogeys and pars, avoid the big numbers. So opted for the wedge that got me on the green safely without risking going long, and we get our tap and bogey. Unfortunate, really a hole that if you just execute 2 good shots and an okay wedge, you should be able to walk away with a 2-putt par here pretty comfortably, but that was not in the cards today. So off to hole number 2. Now hole numbers 2 and 3 are probably the hardest stretch of back-to-back holes on the course, and I always like to warn my buddies when we go play, like, don't get discouraged after 2 and 3, because even though they are short on the scorecard, like I said in the intro, you really do have to execute 2 great shots. Now we're playing from the whites today, so I felt a little more comfortable being aggressive with the corner with the 3-wood and hit it on a really good line. I guess you could say I got lucky by not getting knocked straight down or backwards by the tree branch there and made it through. but left myself with, I think I was 105 out here. Opted for the 50 degree, which is normally like a 115 club, but it was wet, a little muddy here, and it plays a little uphill, and I'd rather be long than short here. Just want to get something to carry that front bunker in case I happen to go right. I still want to putt or chip. I don't want to be in that bunker. And just executed a ho-hum little shot. Nothing special to it. Just a kind of shot you probably should, or at least you need to execute on a course like this. Went a little long. I caught it a little too clean, but again, we're not playing for birdies in this course. If you happen to get one, it's not going to be on 2 or 3. If you walk out of 2 and 3 with 2 pars, you did a really good job. Holes number 4 and 5, much better birdie opportunities, but still nothing's guaranteed. Left that one woefully short because normally the greens are lightning fast, and on this day they were just normal fast. And despite the knee knocker, still drained the putt. So we're thrilled with the 2-putt par and off to number 3. And this one is just such a tough hole because what the pros do, if you watch, is a lot of them will hang up to that little nook on the right corner right before the water starts, because even if you get more distance off the tee, you don't really cut the hole shorter by the amount of yardage that you gain, if that makes sense. So opted for the 3 hybrid just to lay up about 215, 220, and not a club I normally hit well, but executed it here. Felt incredible to be right where I wanted to be. There's nothing better than when you have a plan on a hole and you step up and you execute it. You feel like you're really good at golf, even when you're like myself and very mundane. Had 170 to the center of the green, playing a little uphill, so opted for the trusty 6-iron and ended up hitting a lovely little approach that you can't tell, but carom just off the left side released to give myself a decent birdie look. And not going to happen. Didn't break as much as I thought, and I should have known better. Uphill putts usually break less, is what I've been told, than downhill putts. Just stayed fairly straight, especially on slower greens. Hole number 4, a hole I normally play pretty darn well. It just suits my eye. From the white tees, that's a very comfortable wedge. You're just trying to execute a smooth swing to get it on the green. Kind of plays, and I'm not comparing it to it, but it plays like 12 at Augusta. Great shot. Where the further right you are, the more you need to carry because it's at that tilt. And you don't want to ever top a shot, especially on a par 3. And usually this bunker is not even in play unless you top your shot. So we've got everyone's favorite club in hand. You've got a 40-yard bunker shot that I clipped pure, didn't get any sand, and got a very fortuitous bounce. That ball should have been way further, but it bounced off a tree and rolled to here, which, when you get a good break at a course like this, you just say thanks, I guess. I couldn't think of anything witty or charming to say there, so we'll just say thanks. Decent pitch, but again, I'm short-sighted on a faster green. I have a chance for bogey. Certainly have a chance. Uphill, it goes a little more right to left than I played it, and this would have been a really lovely bogey save. But if you told me you're 3 over through 4, I would have taken that start of the day. So off to number 5, really one of the best examples of the elevation changes on the property. Now remember, we're in Southwest Florida, Tampa Bay area, so there's not a whole lot of elevation changes here, but there is on this property. And if I'm not mistaken, the tee box at the Island course, hole number 11, is the highest point in all of Pinellas County. So the goal here from the white tees, those front bunkers, if you hit a good shot, they're not really even in play. So you're just trying to execute something that gets you out there. Not really a hole you can get there into because it's so blind. even though it looks wide open, it is a sneaky tight tee shot because you've got OB with the range to the right.
No, Justin, I just hit the piss out of that.
And you've got the next hole to the left, but if you're in that tree jail, because that's the direction the hole goes, up and over to the left, if you're in there, you really can't advance the ball very far unless you play down number 6 to the tee box over there. Tried to wrap something around to shape it, but I played a conservative, I think 6 or 7 iron, and it went to the right, but didn't get me in any sort of trouble. Have a perfectly fine wedge here. I think I was 100 on the dot, and I'm getting away with it here. Part of the reason it's so difficult when they play this course on tour is the rough is really grown out, and that's where the teeth, or since we're at Copperhead, the fangs of the course show themselves. That was a little zesty, but that's okay. Have a chance for birdie. Didn't even give it an honest chance. This is one of the few greens that rolls or slopes front to back, which adds the difficulty of trying to get an approach shot to stay there because you have a downhill lie most likely to a green that runs away from you. So 2-putt par, we're happy on to number 6. For some reason, I guess because my shot shape is left-right, this one never really bothered me, but it is one of the harder holes on the course. And my guess would be it's because on the second shot, the fairway is sloped right to left. So a lot of balls will end up down to the left side. And if you want to go to a pin that's on the left side, you have to force carry over that bunker to an elevated green, slightly elevated, to an elevated green, and it just makes for a draw lie. And I think that's where a lot of people really struggle. I obviously did not hit a great tee shot here. Seeing as I'm punching out to the right of the green, didn't really have a good chance with all the trees hanging over. I'll pretend I meant to hit it that low and on that line, but it worked out okay, so we're not gonna complain. Short game's been pretty nice lately. I've made an adjustment on the swing overall, so if you saw the Dunedin course and you're seeing this round, it's going a lot smoother. And the biggest difference for my personal game is I just have to have a really strong grip. Like, I guess from the outside perspective, maybe it doesn't look that strong, maybe it's more of a feel versus real thing. But there's something that happens where when I'm really strong and I feel that elbow tucked to the core, I actually start to rotate and use my body more, where if I have a weaker grip, I just feel disconnected and it's all arms. But it's all personal stuff. Back to the actual round. So 7, this is probably the easiest hole in the front. You saw from the yardage, you don't need to hit much to have a good play here. So we're opting for the 3-wood. Favorite club off the tee in the bag. Anytime I can use it and it puts me in a good spot, I'm gonna opt for it. Didn't pummel it, but hit it well enough that I had a shot, and that's success for me. And so I think I was right around 100 out again to this green that actually does a nice job of sloping back to front. So if you hit a wedge or any kind of shot, it's going to do a good job of catching it and holding it. Much better than number 5 green does. And just another ho-hum wedge. The wedges were firing today. We've got another birdie putt. Don't look now, but we're playing some decent golf since the double bogey on the par 3 fourth. And hit a great putt. Pace was right, but overread the amount of break, which, from what I understand, the pros almost miss 100% of the time by overreading the amount of break, because you'll end up much closer to the pin than underreading it. So if you're going to miss, at least it's a good miss. Number 8 plays very difficult on tour because this plays almost 230 yards for those guys, but for us amateurs at 165-ish yards, slightly downhill, much more doable. I think the wind was slightly in the face, so we opted for a 7-iron here to get there, and we just carried the bunker and actually ended up with a really fortuitous kick that left me with an option to putt here. So Could try to be a hero and chip something, but there's just no need. The rough is not that penal, and it's a very tricky little slider that I almost hole to cut Justin's par in our match play that we had going on the side. But tap in par, never going to complain. So we're off to number 9. A hole I never really play well. It's also ranked pretty high on the course tour, the tour's most difficult holes, because you kind of got to thread the needle here with a longer club in order to have a wedge or a high enough lofted club to where when you hit it on that green, because it's so elevated, it has to come in high and stop. Where if you're hitting, you know, a 5-iron or a 4-iron in there, then you're going to have a tough time getting it to stay on that green. So this is where the trigonometry or the math just didn't add up. I was 130 yards out, right around 130. Opted for the 9 because I just assumed with as much elevation as there is, I'm going to need every bit of it. But I certainly didn't, and I actually carried to the top lip of the bunker and rolled back. Was in a footprint. Rules are, if you're in a footprint, you still got to play it. So we grinned and bared it, but I'm not going to pretend that's why this bunker shot wasn't better. I'm not very good at golf. Just a wee bit too much is asked. That green rolls pretty severely back to front, so just as you can see from this angle, much better. I really didn't even need to hit that hard at all. That's just a bad calculation because I executed the chip I was looking for. And again, just couldn't quite save the bogey. So all in all, 5 over through the front 9. We're not going to complain about that. That is a lovely start to the round at Copperhead, especially when, in my estimation, the back 9 is much more scoreable, much more easy to get your pars in there, and maybe even sneak in a birdie. So let's see how the back 9 goes in the next one. Thanks for watching.